Hello there, my name is Steve Rennie. Welcome to my Ren Baron YouTube flying channel. If you don't already know, my wife and I decided to take a cross-country trip from Santa Monica, California to the Bahamas, Treasure Cay Island. In this video, we'll pick up the action on leg 2 of our trip from El Paso, Texas to Austin. Now I gotta be honest here, I debated whether to post this video at all. First off, I had some technical issues with my cameras and microphones. But secondly, and maybe even more importantly, honestly, it didn't show the best of me as a pilot, and I'm a little embarrassed about that. But in the end, I decided to post it because there was a very important lesson I learned, and a lesson I think that other pilots that are looking to fly outside their home neighborhood and fly on some real cross-country missions need to know as well. We'll pick up the action as we've descended from 11,000 to 7,000 feet for our initial approach into Austin Executive Airport. At this point, we're 2 hours and 33 minutes into our flight from El Paso to Austin, and my wife and I have probably been up about 10 and a half hours since we started in Santa Monica. It's about 7:01 local time in Austin, and the sun sets at 8 o'clock, so the sun is starting to set and getting a little dark as we start our descent. At this point, we've lost the two-way audio between me and ATC, so I'm going to narrate best I can from here forward. ATC instructs us to go direct to Coxie, descend to 4,000, and expect the visual approach to runway 13. So I dial in 4,000 on altitude select, start my descent at 800 feet per minute, and load the visual approach for runway 13. Next, we're instructed by ATC to descend to 2,500 feet. As we approach 2,500 feet, here is where things start to get interesting. First off, it's a little hazy and it's starting to get dark. The camera makes it appear brighter than it really was. At this point, I'm on a 90-degree heading and the airport should be off to my right, and the ATC controller asks me, do I see the airport in sight? So I start looking, but at this point, there's no airport in sight, and I report that back to ATC. ATC comes back to me and tells me to report field in sight, and that's what I intend to do. As I'm looking for the airport, I activate Vectors to Final, which provides two important pieces of situational awareness. First, it calculates a vertical descent profile to the final approach fix. And secondly, it provides a beautiful pink line on the approach course for visual reference.
Vertical track.
I'll stop the video one more time so you can see exactly where we are at this point in the flight. If you look at the top right corner of the screen, you'll see that we're 8.7 miles away from our final approach fix. We're at 2,500 feet and we're looking for 1,471 feet at the final approach fix. Now that's all great, but here's some reality. You can have the greatest plane with the greatest instruments with the greatest information in the world, but if you don't use it properly, it won't matter. The pilot still has to fly the plane and make great decisions. And when you don't, things can get tricky very fast. As we close in on the airport, I still don't see it, and I'm starting to get a little anxious about it. And then lo and behold, we find the airport. Or did we? I think in retrospect, my wife and I wanted to see the airport. Maybe I didn't want to tell the controller one more time, no airport in sight. In any event, and against my better judgment, I've reported field in sight. And so ATC clears us for the approach and hands us off to Austin Tower. Now here is where things start to go wrong. Once I had my clearance, I should have entered direct to the final approach fix and set 1,471 feet as my altitude select. From there, I could have chosen either vertical navigation or vertical speed to initiate the descent. But inexplicably, I decide to enter 700 in as the altitude select. And to make matters worse, I decide to dial it in at 700 feet per minute. I wish I could tell you what I was thinking, but I can't. Perhaps I was too tired. Perhaps I had talked myself into seeing the airport miles before it really was in front of me. But in any event, I had just written a prescription to be too low, way too far out. 1 minute later, I'm at 1,800 feet. And I still don't see the airport. And now it's obvious that I'm too low, way too far out. As I turn for final, the shit hits the fan.
Caution, terrain. Caution, terrain. Caution, terrain. Caution, terrain.
Well, if that doesn't get your attention, I don't know what will.
Caution, terrain.
So I turned off the autopilot and leveled the plane at 1,180 feet, 560 feet over the ground. And needless to say, there is still no airport in sight. And finally, if all that noise coming from the Garmin perspective wasn't enough, there's always a human being to remind you when you screwed up.
Foxtrot Sierra, check your altitude immediately. Please set the MBA near is 1,000 feet. Foxtrot Sierra, under runway 13 wind 1308, wind command with 14 mile final.
Finally, after 10 and a half hours and 1,100 miles, the words I wanted to hear: you're cleared to land. When my wife and I started the day in Santa Monica, we knew it was going to be a great adventure, and we knew that we would learn a lot. And day one certainly lived up to the expectations. The lessons started very early. 40 minutes into the flight, we had our first brush with hypoxia. For the next 2 hours, we dodged in and out of clouds, avoiding weather on the way to El Paso. Once we got to El Paso, we learned some lessons there as well. When you mix hot weather, full fuel, and a belly full of hot Mexican food, you get slow climb and a slow pilot. But the most lasting, the most important lesson I learned on day one came at the very end. And it's a lesson I already knew long before I started flying. If you're not sure about something, ask. I've learned that the controllers are there to help you, but you got to be honest about what you don't know or what you don't see. Instead of worrying about looking dumb, worry about looking dead. It's kind of sad but true, but some of the greatest lessons in my life have come from screwing something up, not getting it right. But smart folks, smart pilots, don't make the same mistake twice. Next time I'm flying to an unfamiliar airport, I'm going to stay on the IFR flight plan and do an approach where I know where I'm supposed to be at every moment of the way. Next time I'm flying to an unfamiliar airport, I'm going to check out that 3D view on ForeFlight to make sure I know where the airport is. And of course, I'll make sure I stay high enough over the telephone poles to keep the wife from getting nervous. And finally, when you see that runway, don't forget to say, "Runway in sight."